On what day of the week did the Last Supper take place? Thursday night, right? Thursday was the Last Supper, Friday was the crucifixion, Saturday Jesus was in the grave, and Sunday was the resurrection. 4 days. Well, that's how we interpret it, but we must remember that the Bible is a Jewish book. And for Jewish people, even to this day, the new day doesn't begin at midnight, it begins at sunset. And so we need to move the whole thing back 6 hours, and the Last Supper takes place on the Friday. 3 days. Now here's the remarkable thing. In this great Gospel of John, he devotes 8 chapters out of 21, that's 38% of the book, to just 3 days, chapters 13 to 20, because he knew that these 3 days were the most important in the history of the world. 2 more questions. What do you think is the central message of John to unbelievers? I think the clue is in the word unbeliever. The central message is believe that you may be born again. But what is the central message of Jesus to believers? I believe it's to love one another. He says that in verse 34, a new commandment I give to you. Love one another is not difficult to describe. It's actually very simple. I had many couples come to me for marriage preparation classes, and we spent 4 hours together. But I always used to say, we don't need these 4 hours. I can tell you in a simple sentence how to have a successful marriage. Philippians 2 verse 3. Put the interests of the other above yourself. Why do we find that so difficult? But it's the highest calling of the Christian. And so we come to the Last Supper, the whole of chapter 13. And the first thing Jesus does on this last night of his ministry is to demonstrate in object lesson form that our highest calling is to love one another. He takes a towel, kneels down, and starts to wash the disciples' feet. Now I got to thinking, what would be the modern equivalent of washing someone else's feet? In a general sense, of course, it means to serve one another. But what specifically would be the equivalent? I think back to that time. It was a very agrarian society. There were animals all over the place, cows and sheep and goats and donkeys, and dung everywhere. And I don't think they paid anyone to pick it up. Frankly, if we were transported back to that time, I think we'd be quite disgusted. And so you walk around all day, and what do you think your feet are like when it comes to supper time? And we're going to recline around the table, and your stinky feet are going to be right underneath my nose when I eat that Passover roast lamb. So washing the feet makes you acceptable and presentable to be around the table. Now, in every society, in every group, whether it be a tennis club or a school classroom or a church, there are people who feel at home around the table, and there are people who don't feel acceptable around the table. They don't feel very accepted. And Jesus is saying, I want you to go to those people and do something to make them feel acceptable. The greatest example I ever saw of this, and it made me weep, was way back in 1989, the days of apartheid still. We had a very good ministers' fraternal in Waterkloof in Pretoria. There were 7 churches, all of them attended the fraternal, and we had a combined communion service on Maundy Thursday. And as often happens at those services, we had a foot washing ceremony. Now sometimes I think those ceremonies are a little bit false, because if you know your feet are going to be washed, you make sure they're really clean before you come, which destroys the whole point of it. But we'd agreed that each church would provide 2 people to have their feet washed, and each pastor would wash the feet of someone from another church. Now, it was a very white congregation that night, but the Anglican church provided a white woman and a black woman to have their feet washed. And it just fell that it was the Dutch Reformed minister who was to wash their feet. And he knelt down in front of the white woman, and he washed her feet and dried them. And then he shifted across to the black woman, and he washed her feet and dried them. And then he bent over, and one by one, he kissed those two black feet. And he made that woman know she was welcome in this white congregation.